chins on the table, like,
Hi guys.
Welcome to my world.
Good evening, everyone. You made it back, and it's good to see you. We are going to finish chapter 7 today, and I even have a role play for you guys. Right? Excited? There you are. But before that, let's go ahead and do prayer requests. I'm going to start it with Rachel Cole, who needs continued prayer. She had surgery, and I don't know what's happening with her, but she definitely needs to touch the Lord. Okay, anyone else?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go with Ben.
You can go first.
All right.
Pray for the Curley family.
The Curley family?
Yeah, their son Jake, Caleb, is alcohol
Yeah.
struggling with that.
No. Good.
I have a second job interview this Wednesday.
That's
Next
same company?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Love it. Glenn,
For the services this weekend,
Easter's Resurrection Services. And Good Friday. We have Good Friday. Glenn,
just strength.
Frank? Other prayer requests?
We need to seek the kingdom of God and global prayer.
Yep.
For my youngest brother's salvation.
What is the thing?
Leonardo.
Okay. Anyone else? Oh,
I just thought about those guys that died when the bridge went down.
not only that, but also the jobs that are, I think it's like 50,000. Anyone else? Right. Lord, we come to you in our time of need. We come to you, Lord, because we know that you are able and that you are there and that you want to hear us, hear from us, Lord. Pray for Rachel Cole, Lord, who's continuing to battle. Just had a recent surgery, God, we just ask that you would be with her, Lord. You heal her. Touch her body, Lord, that finally from this moment she can walk through here without any further complications. Lord, that her GI system and all that is entailed with that, Lord, would be healed. Inflammation would go, infection would be gone, Lord, and that she can live her life out with her family. We ask in Jesus' name. We ask for the Curley family, Lord, as there is alcoholism and God, it's ravaging every end. So, Lord, we ask for your strength to be with that family, grace and mercy as well for this young man, Lord. I ask that you get a hold of his heart and his life. I ask that you utilize the family to be able to reach out to him, Lord, that he would listen, he would get help, Lord, and that you bring salvation for his body and also his soul. Pray, God, for a job interview that Ben is going through. That you can favor God. I know that you are good, God. You got good things in store for that, Lord. That you would bless him with a job, Lord, in Jesus' name. Pray for our resurrection services on Sunday, Lord, also Good Friday. For the individuals that only come once a year, or maybe the first time into a church, God, that you would speak to their hearts, Holy Spirit, that you would minister, and that you would change lives, and that you would draw men to you, Lord. But the individuals that are here that don't know you, God, will make a choice for you in Jesus' name. We pray for general strength, Lord, strength in character, Lord, strength in our bodies, Lord, for our families, Lord, strength in all those areas, Lord. I just feel this particularly with the Teen Challenge guys, it's away from their family, Lord, that you give them strength to be able to endure as they go through the program, and their families without that would be able to endure as well with your strength. And growth, Lord, we ask in Jesus' name. For global prayer, Lord, we know this world is lost and is under control of the devil, Lord, but we know that you are able, God, and you have a purpose and a plan for each of us. And I ask the word of God would go out in all boldness to all the earth, Lord. We pray for the kingdom of God, Lord, that your kingdom would come here, Lord, in Jesus' name. We pray for Leonardo, Lord, and for his salvation. We don't know exactly where he's at, but God, we know that you are able to touch him and you're reaching him, Lord, and Spirit, we know, the book of Isaiah says that your arm is not too short that it can't save, or is your ear deaf that you can't hear. You hear, and you're able to reach out into our circumstances, so we ask that for me in our Lord. We pray for those that are affected in Baltimore, Lord, for those that lost their lives, pray that you be with the families. I pray for those that with jobs that are in turmoil, and the many people that need the support to be open, Lord, for their livelihood. Lord, we just ask that you would make a way. You'd make a way. May this, in whatever way, Lord, that you could turn the situation for good for you. We ask for your hand to be upon that city, upon those people, in Jesus' name. We pray for our services, Lord, tonight, that, Lord, you would be with us here, be with the Rangers, Lord, the Impact Girls, the youth, and those that are volunteering. Holy Spirit, you would minister in Jesus' name. Amen. Fine, have a seat. Pastor showed up late, that's okay.
Hey, listen, I don't get to usually say anything, right? This is my time. So, 2 weeks ago we had left off on atheism distractions, right? And one of the things that we talked about were the 3 moves that atheists in general make when they're having a conversation about faith, when they're having a conversation about God. And so what we discussed was the very first move is to redefine what atheism is. It used to be very, very simple. Atheism was the belief that there is no God. And instead of saying something so very, very strong, there is no God, what you normally see nowadays, and certainly those online, is that, I lack a belief in God. That's different than there is no God. Did you want to say something?
Nope,
with that,
I'm just listening.
Which is a sleight of hand. And the reason it's a sleight of hand is just a lack of belief. You don't have to defend a lack of belief, right? But that's not exactly what we're talking about here. But that's what they try to do. Move number 2 is redefining what faith is and what it means. Now, sometimes the Christian doesn't quite understand what they believe about faith. But the general position that has been always from the beginning is faith is not blind. We just don't believe to believe. We believe based on evidence, right? There's experiential evidence that happens to us. There's experiential evidence that happens to others. But we build our faith on things that we can see, but it's not a complete knowing, right? So that's the other thing they try to do. They try to make it into a blind faith. Well, you just believe just to believe, and what is that? It's not right. And then move number 3 is just generally a blanket dismissal that there is no evidence for God, and that belief in God is irrational. And that is a big one. And this is what happens. They paint the theist, the person that believes in God, to be a bumbling moron, right? You don't have reasons to believe. You don't have any evidence to believe. You just believe because either that's what you were told when you were a kid, or because you grew up in a Christian nation. If you hear this often, if you grew up in India, you'd probably be a Hindu. If you grew up in China, you would be an atheist, so forth and so on, right? It's just because of where you were and how your parents taught you, and that's the blanket dismissal. So what we didn't get to is the general maneuvers of how do you actually handle that. And so let me put that out there before we actually discuss that. How do you handle something like that? Because it could be aggressive, and that's one of the reasons why Christians generally don't want to go to your atheist convention or even talk to atheists, because it's intimidating, right? They seem to know what they're talking about. They seem to know a lot about science, and maybe I'm not so versed on that. But how do we handle and maneuver in that kind of dangerous situation?
Bring them to the gospel and show them the proof of Christ, and then if we have a background that's a little deeper than just the Word of God and reading the Bible to kind of prove where else they can find it, proof is like in the pudding. I mean, if you can prove something beyond a reasonable doubt, then is it true? Yeah.
Sure, but if you bring them to the Bible, what they'll say is, I don't believe in that book, and you're trying to prove God from the Bible, which is a circular reasoning, is what they'll say.
I would show them.
That's what I would say, that's what they would say.
I would say to get them to see their
Okay, get them to see the flaw in what their belief is. And what do you see as their flaw, if you don't mind me asking?
Like something comes from nothing.
Okay, good. That something can come from nothing, which is counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Makes zero sense, but yet they believe that. Right, good. Yep.
The Bible says the wages of sin is death, but I would ask them, if they don't believe in the Bible, have they ever done anything wrong and felt guilty about it?
Oh, okay. So then he said, I'd bring in, if you don't believe in the Bible, I'd ask them, have you ever done anything and felt guilty about it? And then where would you go from there?
I'd ask them where that guilt comes from.
Then he'd ask where that guilt comes from. So that's the moral argument, which is it's a good place to go. That is good. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Well, let's take a look at the maneuvers and how we can maneuver that situation. And guess what, guys? It's the same information you've already gone through. So step one is using the Columbo tactic number 1. So that's interesting, right? So what kind of atheist are you then? It's the what questions to begin with. What you want to do is you want to clarify what their position is so you know what you're up against. The first question is determining exactly what they are saying. Why is that important? Because not all atheists agree on all of the points of atheism, right? There's different degrees of what an atheist may believe, just like in Christianity, right? So it's good to know what you're up against. Most atheists that you will find are materialists, but not all believe that nothing exists except what is governed by natural laws. It's good to know what you're dealing with. Some believe in objective morality. Well, that's interesting. Where does that come from if there's not a lawgiver or a moral law, right? But not all. Some would say there is no such thing as morality. And some lean towards agnosticism, which is just I don't really know. There could be a God, I'm not quite sure. So what are the advantages of asking the what questions? That's the Columbo tactic number 1. Yes?
Could it be so that you can pin them on something?
Well, possibly, yes, so you can pin them. Well, if you know what they believe, you have a better chance of seeing where the error is and showing them, right? I think that's good. And what other benefit could there be?
You understand the question. I'm not going to hear the same.
Yeah, oh, go ahead.
You can formulate a defense or like a counterattack.
Yes, you can formulate a defense or a counterattack, as it may be. And then you were saying
No, I was going to say
something
something similar.
similar.
Yeah, like you know the questions to ask.
You know the question. So in another sense, then, you're not scared. It shows that you're not scared, you're not put off, you're not running away from that, right? You're calm and cool. Go ahead.
Put it in a way that you care about what you're not just trying to be argumentative.
Yes, good. It shows that you're not just trying to be an argumentative jerk, you're actually caring and engaging in a conversation, right? And wanting to have a dialogue. And so I think that's good. It also gives you time to consider what your next question, what your next step is, right? And it also gets that person to think about their specific point of view more clearly. Because if you don't ask questions, they never have to defend. And oftentimes people never really flesh out what they believe because they just know the talking points. But when you ask the question, you'll all see them kind of work through it. And they have to clarify what they mean to themselves. So then once we know what they believe, the next step is Columbo number 2, which is what questions are they? What kind of questions are they? Why questions? Yes, go ahead.
So, I believe last week, I had brought up the atheist that I had known, that I had kind of, took about a year to kind of get them to see something. One of the why questions I asked him is, why am I still here after physical violence, addictions, and things like what, other than supernatural power, has kept me through all of that? And that, they were kind of stymied there, but, the testimony that I had given them, for getting hit in the head with a machete, the drugs that I put in my body, the abuse that I grew up with,
Yeah.
he didn't have an answer as to why, naturally.
Yeah.
And so he started thinking, and we didn't go any further than that because it was a little traumatic to talk about for both sides.
Sure.
But he had nothing to say. That was one of the pinning points that brought him to convert over to understanding Jesus Christ.
Very cool.
Because there was nothing that could explain it other than a supernatural power that wasn't
don't. Right? That guy doesn't, that's right. That's a good soundbite, I might use that someday. Okay, so the second type of question that you use is the why question, and it's, so why do you believe what you believe? That's what you're trying to get to. So you understand what they believe, but what made them go that direction? So why are you an atheist? What evidence did you come across that convinced you that that's the way to go, right? And what is the benefit of asking that question? A why question. What does that do?
I believe that it gets them to get outside of themselves, because our own understanding is based on experience. If we don't, like say I was an atheist and I didn't believe in God, I would have to rely on my own understanding that is limited.
Yeah, they have to rely on their own understanding, and that's what you're trying to pull out, what their understanding is and how they got to there. Go ahead, Ben.
It makes you more of a person. Like, I care about you enough that I'm asking why you believe in what you believe.
Yeah, so instead of being an opponent then, you become a person, because now you're inquiring into them as a curious being and not just, again, as someone that's trying to thumb with something, right? It puts us into a more comfortable position, certainly. It uncovers the evidence for what they believe or the lack thereof, right? Now, they may give you evidence. They may give a vague charge that there is not enough evidence to prove a God. They may try to distract or redirect you, but that why question is pivotal in your understanding and what you do next. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So you determine what they believe, you determine why they believe. So let's get back a little bit to the distractions and redefining what atheism, that first distraction, they try to redefine what atheism is. Like I said before, atheism was defined differently than it is today, years ago. It used to mean there is no God or God does not exist. Now the claim is not God does not exist, but rather I lack a belief that God exists. And again, a subtle shift, but a shift nonetheless. It's an attempt to get out of having to prove what they believe, right? Because we said this before, the person that makes a statement has to show the proof. And we've talked about it. When someone says, I don't think such and such and such and such, tell me why I'm wrong, well, that's not fair, because you're trying to have me do the work, the heavy lifting for you, and I'm not going to do that. Don't give free rides to people with that. No, you said that. What is it that you mean by that, and why do you believe that? Those are the two questions to ask in whatever combination. But this subtle change is that attempt to not have to defend, right? It's some attempt to find a safe harbor in vague like agnosticism. These moves are almost always disingenuous, coming from someone who claims clearly and lives clearly an atheistic view. So these individuals say that, I just lack a belief in God. You don't live like that. You believe and you live like there is no God. This is just a way to try to skirt trying to defend yourself. And you'll see this on YouTube if you look at the YouTube shorts or Facebook shorts or even TikTok kind of shorts with atheists. They'll say, I don't need to defend this. I don't have to defend this. I just lack a belief in God. Okay, but you really don't, right? And your life, the way you live, proves otherwise. So, some attempts to find a safe harbor shouldn't work for us. True agnosticism is an intellectually respectable position, but it's not what they're talking about, because they really have no neutral view. They have a very strong view, and it's our job to pull that out. And we're going to do that in our role play about it. So,
I was going to say, I find it to be true with a lot of people who claim to be agnostic, that they're really hardcore atheists, but they just say they're agnostic because then they get to ride that fence between either one. And you can't judge me because I don't believe or not believe. I just don't think there's enough evidence. And when you give them evidence, then you'll see that, at least I found, that they're like defending atheism. I'm like, I thought you were neutral. I'm giving you evidence. You should be, this is interesting. But they're not. Now they're like, wait, there's this and this, and what about this? And I'm like, okay, all right. So that's why that first question, or even the second question, really does help, because, like you said, no free rides.
No free rides, it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So theist, atheist, agnostic are not words that describe knowledge categories. They describe internal belief systems, right? Most of our beliefs are fallible, right? They're capable of being proved false. And that's a good thing, because if it can be proved false, it can also be proved true. That's why Christianity is wonderful like that, because you can prove Christianity to be true. It's not some mystical thing out in the clouds somewhere that you just need to have faith to believe. No, there's good evidence to believe what it says, right? We still believe our beliefs to be true, even though generally we don't have 100% surety about any of them. We still have good reasons to be. Most of us don't have 100% certainty that we believe our beliefs to be true. However, we behave as if we do. I'll give you 3 examples. When you're driving down the street, you believe in your heart that you're going to be safe for the most part, that the person that is also driving next to you is awake, is alert, has a license, and has experience to be on the road, right? When you're driving across the bridge, bad timing for Baltimore, but when you're driving across the bridge, you believe that the engineers that built that bridge had degrees, knew what they were doing, and you're not going to fall through, right? When you go to the pharmacy, you believe that the medication that the pharmacist hands to you is indeed the information and the drug that you're supposed to have, and that it's not cyanide, and if you take it, it's not going to kill you. You believe that the people behind the counter are qualified to do their job and don't have a vendetta or are not serial killers, right? There's a belief there. You know, I remember I was watching another short, and it was kind of cool because this young girl, and it's Cliff something or other, but he goes to different colleges and he has discussions, and this one girl said, you know, can you show me 100% with 100% certainty that the Bible is true? And he said, no, but I can't show you anything with 100% certainty that it's true. And she says, well, I live my life with 100% certainty. He says, oh, really? Do you? And he brought up the pharmacy thing. He said, when you go to a pharmacy and the pharmacist gives you the medication, do you immediately take out a chemistry set and test it for what it is? No? Well, then you don't have 100% certainty. How can you say you live by 100% certainty when you don't even do that? And she was like, right? It's not true. But we all live to this certain way as if something were true, right? It's important. I have the flipping on a light switch. You believe it's going to turn on.
Brakes for a car.
Brakes for a car.
Yeah, I mean, you replaced them, so, I mean, yeah.
They work.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I looked at the front of his car after he said he fixed it. I want to know how well it went for him. If it worked on the first time, or he had to go back and work on them again.
That's funny. Okay, so I want to read the quote on the bottom of page 75, because I think it's kind of important here.
You don't have me read it.
Well, your thing has different numbers.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with your eyes. Like you can't
This
read.
low light, I can't see it in this light.
So,
I need bifocals.
so this is what the author says. He says, here is the insight that betrays the flaw in this verbal sleight of hand. Atheists may lack a belief in God. True enough, but they do not lack a belief about God. They are neither agnostics nor non-believers. Rather, they are believers of a certain kind. They believe there is no God, even if they don't know for sure. That is why they're called atheists. I'm like, you know what? That's a really, really good point, and I thought it worth saying. What do you think about that? What do you think about those statements? What do you think about those examples?
So in regards to my atheist friend, and I like the fact that you're talking about percentages and a sure thing. So an EPT test has 99.9% proof that you're going to be pregnant when you're not.
Yeah.
And it shows positive, 99.9% you're pregnant and you have a child. There's no full surety. When it comes to atheism and my friend, it wasn't, I got him to think about how he felt that he didn't believe in God. Really, it turned out to be rebellion against what he didn't want to believe.
That's good.
You know,
Rebellion
that's a
against
long
what he
thing that I
doesn't
don't
want
want
to
to explain,
believe.
but the emotional connection we have, and something that I brought to his attention in the Word is that, number one, we all were born in sin.
Yeah.
And so our natural sin is to rebel against God. And therefore, his emotional detractment from God is because he doesn't want to face the fact that something greater than us can control whether or not we have that are out there. You know, and it it that way, but
They do not want to see it that way. So it's convenient because this absolves them of their perceived guilt. Yeah, good, very good. Okay, tell you why when someone says they just lack a belief in God, they're not telling the truth. Because nobody drones on about their non-beliefs. And those individuals will drone on about their non-belief in God. So it's not a lack of belief. They believe a certain type and a certain kind of knowledge, and that there is no God, for sure. If I'm deprived of information, I'm deprived of an opinion, and I'm truly neutral. But this is not the case with atheists. They are not neutral about God. They are very vocal about it. You can just look at all the different books that are written on the subject. They have a lot to say. There are only three possible responses to the claim that God exists. They are this. You can affirm it, God exists. You can deny it, God does not exist. Or you can withhold judgment. I'm neutral. This comes from a lack of interest or a lack of information about it. But neither apathy nor uncertainty characterizes the individual who says, I lack a belief in God. How should I approach someone then who tries this sleight of hand, this atheism sleight of hand? And I'm glad that you asked that question, because I have a little bit of a role play to play out here. Do you want to try it? Can you read it, Dan?
Yeah.
Who do you want to be? You want to be the Christian or the atheist?
I could be the Christian here.
Okay, do that.
The way you describe your atheism confuses me a bit. Would you mind if I ask you a few questions?
No, go ahead. That's no problem.
Okay, I'm going to make a statement, and I'd like to hear your response. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, so here it is. God exists. What do you personally believe about that statement?
Like I told you before, I really don't know for certain.
Right, I got that. But I'm not asking what you know. I'm asking what you believe.
Okay, I'd say that I'm agnostic then.
Okay, so agnostics have no opinion one way or the other. From what you said so far, though, it doesn't sound to me like you're neutral on God. Maybe I can put the question another way?
Okay.
All right, so given the statement God exists, it seems you have one of three choices. You could affirm the statement. That would be my view, theism. You could deny the statement. That would be atheism. Or you could completely withhold judgment since you have no opinion one way or the other. That's agnosticism. Can you think of another option?
I think that's right.
Okay, so which one are you? Do you affirm the statement God exists? Do you deny it? Or do you have no opinion one way or the other?
It's like I said, I just lack a belief in God.
I get that, but just to be clear, that wasn't one of the possible options. Are you saying you have no opinion one way or the other on the matter? Are you sitting on the fence on the God issues?
I have no belief in God.
Right, but that is a different issue. Isn't saying you are not isn't saying that you have no belief in God different from saying you have no belief about God?
I really don't know what you mean here.
Okay, let me put it this way. I believe in God, but you've been pushing back on that. I think you think I'm mistaken about God, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so if you think I'm wrong about God existing, then you must believe He doesn't exist, which is why you have no belief in God. Does that make sense?
To your point.
So, in your case, having no belief in God is really the same thing as believing that God doesn't exist, which is why you think I'm mistaken for believing in God, right? Yeah.
So I think the purpose of this line of reasoning is to even the playing field, right?
Mm-hmm.
Both Christian and atheist have convictions and systems of beliefs. Those beliefs are at odds with each other. Both sides have a view to support and to defend, right? If you're not clear about it, you will always be on the defense. And that's why that's important. What he was doing here was trying to get me to clarify my position and to get me out of the neutral, because I'm not neutral about it. But I'm saying I'm neutral. And I don't think they're trying to be dishonest. I think that's just the way they're going towards to try to escape. Don't let them do that. Keep bringing it back to the situation. Okay? So what I'd like to do is on the back of the sound booth, I had printed this out. And so I'd like you guys to break up in small groups and try going over this. And you don't have to go word for word, right? You could shake it up a little bit. If you think of a different way, go a different way with it. But I'm going to give you guys about 10 minutes to kind of roll through this, to kind of see how you do with it and see how you feel with it, okay? I think there's more than 20, I made 20 copies. I don't think everybody's gonna get one, but you can share them, okay? They're right in the back. That's funny. Yeah, not bad. I think I make these 14.
Pastor Mike,
Yeah, it's just.
are you saying God doesn't exist is a belief about God?
Yeah. It's 100% a belief about God.
But they don't see it that way because they don't want to say belief because belief means you have faith in something and they don't believe in
What
faith.
if I
So
would phrase it as the subject of God? That you believe that it doesn't exist?
well, they have a belief that God doesn't exist, but they don't want to call it a belief. They just say, "Oh, I just
Lack
I
of
believe,
belief.
I just believe that I don't believe in God." But
I
really,
lack a belief in him.
but they're militant in that lack of belief.
Right. Yeah. That's the point. Yeah.
And there are some people who are just like, "Yeah, brother."
There are some
Yeah.
that don't even think about it, but
Right, and they're truly agnostic. And
Right.
like, if you give me proof, I'm going to church Sunday.
I'll look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, you know. Yeah. And that's
Fanciful faith.
pretty sure it was that one. And I think he was like, I couldn't believe it. These are all the arguments that he has been through ages. And I'm like, oh, so you know. He's like, I gave this book because I thought you didn't know. You were, I just lacked belief in it. Like, I didn't know you, and I was giving him the book so that we had some sort of ground to build a conversation on. Because I don't want to go into,
So he's a stone cold
cosmological argument or, the moral argument. You'd be like, I don't even know what that is.
He's like, that's a cosmological argument,
Yeah,
bro.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like,
And he's
hold on.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then as I'm talking to him, he's defending. And it was funny because after that conversation, he left and I was like, I go, oh, he is not. He's hardcore atheist, like really atheist. He says he's agnostic because it makes us softer.
It's softer.
Especially around Christian people.
Yeah.
And he'll come to church. He'll still come to church if he's asked to.
Yeah.
But he's not coming in. He's not letting people in. This is what you believe in.
He's an enemy of it, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I'm fine. Hey, you believe in spaghetti God? Fine. Let's help you go to the meeting. Because I like you. You're cool. Let's,
Yeah.
I like spaghetti.
Monster.
Yeah.
Like spaghetti.
It's like that kind of a thing, But he's not like, I'm not going to be buying into it. I'm not going to,
I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, but I'll find you there. I have no problems, And so that was the thing I told her. I go, yeah, this isn't a good one.
Yeah.
Like, your whole life is going to go in this direction. And he's very, I would say he's more faithful to atheism than my daughter is to Christianity. And it's like, so you're just going to get pulled away.
Yeah.
And she doesn't get it. She's like, oh, no, he said he'd drive me to church. I'm like, that's not the same thing.
That's not the thing.
Like, I go, you met your own God in person. You have a very rough road because your belief system is completely different.
Yes.
And one of them has to give to the other.
Because then you bring kids into it too.
Yeah.
Then what happens, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And then he's going to be like, yeah, he's going to teach him about atheism and that this isn't what you care about. And they're going to say, why are you undermining what I believe?
Faith is not important. Or you're like, oh, it's just a good story or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
well, I can go to church or not go to church. God still loves me. Well, that's
Yep.
I've been teaching you your whole life. So
Right.
that's not
Right.
So,
Yeah, well, I hope
so,
she doesn't get tangled up in him or that he
or he comes around.
comes around. Yeah, that would be preferable.
I was watching, is it Matt Doherty or something? He's an atheist.
Yes.
You've seen that guy?
Yes.
So,
There's an older guy, kind of bald.
yes.
There's
He was a bad atheist.
Aaron Roth. He was a minister.
Was he? Yeah. And he, he's very intelligent. He is Cliff was
Yeah.
he devout Cliff. Cliff was getting frustrated, angry, and yelling. And he goes, well, if this is wrong, could
very good.
Right? Asking him for how to put, like, well, sure, to go back to the drawing board and find a way that you can bring this into a conversation. It's my job to, and Matt was getting viral too. It's like, oh, stupid. But he's not a Christian. You, on the other part, like, it's probably a full conversation, bring it to the fact that they're going to get you back home. But above all, you're still a Christian. Like, he needed to walk away and go, yeah, Cliff didn't know what he's talking about, but he was really going to stand up for it. At the end of it,
You got neither. Yeah.
and then I watched him debate, the really intelligent guy from Canada.
Canada.
Peterson.
Oh, Jordan Peterson?
Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
So he debated him, and they were talking about God, or about, you know, that whole thing. And he was like, show me the proof. And Jordan talked to him the whole time, and Matt goes like, well, you know, this is just like proof that this is you. No, it's not. What do you mean it's just, I'm just supposed to accept that shit as well? Like, no. If you're not going to give me, you're not just going to do that. You show me that this is, you need to prove every step of the way. You would not give them.
Jordan Peterson is bright man.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I love listening to him.
Yeah.
Love it.
I don't know how far he is in Christianity or where he is on that.
I think he's accepted Christ.
Yeah. But
He's done conversations about Christ.
yeah. True. I have seen. Yeah. I have seen some of those. The one thing I thought was interesting though is like Jordan is so intelligent that some stuff that they should challenge him on, they don't. It's so brilliant. They're like, I don't understand the information. He's a doctorate. Like he could just quote himself.
He's amazing.
Source. He is absolutely.
The way he phrases things.
Lawyer, yeah. Just the he thinks about each word and phrases it specifically a certain way. Like it's more like he's like, he's not struggling with trying to explain it to you. He's trying to explain it to you so you can't misinterpret it, or that you won't misinterpret it. I'm going to talk about it. So that one was really good. It was like an hour and 45 minutes, and they didn't really resolve anything. There was no aha, gotcha, and really, but it was really a great one from Jordan. Just how to control the conversation and not letting that other person take something. And he was trying to tell Jordan because he was saying that proof of God, the supernatural, is through hallucinations. Because of this particular drug you take, if you have a supernatural experience, you'll stop smoking. If you don't have that like you take the mushrooms, regular mushroom, if you don't have this really ethereal supernatural experience, you might still smoke. But anybody who does takes that drug, the mushroom,
Has a supernatural.
85% never go back to smoking. They have a smoking sensation. They never
Then it's gone.
back. Yeah.
Wow.
And he said that is proof that there is something beyond. Because like there are people who take mushrooms and they experience a supernatural experience, things that are just out of this realm of
Yeah.
we would normally. And he's like, and no, you can't use it because it's not scientific. What do you mean? It's been proven. This is scientific proof. You can deny that we want to accept these facts. I mean, this is proven fact that people have a supernatural experience, but they claim to be.
Yeah.
Because
It's qualitative. Yeah.
he's like, I can't. Your wife, right? But except maybe that was but it's like you can't figure out feel something. I just take it for granted, like and that's the thing I go on. You can't go inside of your mind and really get the
Right.
feel that way, you know. And it was his was really good because Jordan, he was trying to deny Jordan certain things as proof. And he was
Yeah.
like, I don't know.
He does that all the time. All the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Only what you can. It's a very, very strict interpretation of what truth is or proof is.
Right. He wants proof, and he's like, basically he wants supernatural proof, but he knows there's no way to
Can't
get
do it.
supernatural because we live in a supernatural world. There's no way to get supernatural proof out of a natural world.
Right.
And even if it happened, we wouldn't even know it's supernatural
It's a shame.
Because the thing is, the thing with four pillars, the thing that is flawless, he broke them all down and said this could be false and that could be false. On their own. But he never once said, but I'm not using the Bible. If all four of these at once, you can take one of these and make them false. And say that's what the whole thing is true. But see, he was singling out each of his pillars and making them stand by themselves. But that isn't how we do it. We don't believe the Bible. Oh yeah, the Bible is historically accurate. Everything is true.
Everything has to be true. If one little thing is off, then it's all wrong.
2,000 years from now, you watch Spider-Man. Oh, there was a World Trade Center. Okay, there was a Spider-Man that was there because we only take that one pillar. Forget the other three that we're going to gauge it with. We can't use those. We only can use this one.
Yeah.
So therefore, it must be true using your scenario. But
Right.
if we put all four of them together, then you would have been like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And that I didn't watch
So
the whole thing. Maybe he'll go back.
yeah,
But
that's upsetting. I would hope that he would
I
do
didn't
better.
watch the whole thing. I should watch the whole thing, but I watched like an hour
Gotcha.
out of an hour and a half. I'm like, it's not going better.
I saw
Getting better at it.
a 2-hour one last week with Bart Ehrman, and there's a Catholic apologist. He's got red hair, big red beard, and a cowboy hat.
I haven't seen that one.
I think it's Jamie something or other.
Okay, I
But
haven't seen.
he
But
actually
Matt is really good because it's like,
beat Ehrman
yeah.
soundly
Oh,
in
really?
the debate. It was solid. It was about is the gospel reliable.
Oh,
He did such a great job.
I feel like Hartman was just using this as a ploy for
He
stardom.
he got beat, I think, but it was very good. It was very good.
Yeah.
All right, let's get it back.
Yeah, I would say if you had a grade, I would say Jordan did because he spoke most of the
Oh,
time.
love him.
Yeah.
All right. How'd we do? We still going? A few more minutes?
Oh no. Now we know the truth. The truth comes out. There's more atheists in our midst now.
Wow, she's that good.
Wow.
You guys need a few more minutes? I'll give a few more minutes if you need it.
Yeah.
You go to church? Nice. All right. Let's bring it back together then. We don't got a tremendous amount to go. Although I could have that, you have no idea. You just got to go by my word.
By
So-
faith?
Was that? Tell me a little bit of the experience with this. How did you guys feel doing it? Was it worth your time? Did you learn anything? That sort of thing. Go ahead.
As I tried to represent the atheists, I felt I was trying to wiggle out of everything.
As I was trying to represent the atheist, I felt like I was trying to wiggle out of everything. Okay, good. Ladies first. Go ahead, Robin.
As the atheist, I also felt like you guys were trying to label us.
You felt labeled.
And I feel like that community doesn't like labels, and I can
Yeah.
just imagine this kind of getting heated because you're trying to
Oh,
put
sure.
them into a category.
Sure. I mean, this has the potential to get out of hand, but if it starts to, you could always bow out of it. You don't have to engage in that, right? If someone's not ready to have the conversation, they're not ready, right? Go ahead.
So as the atheist, it was interesting because
It was interesting.
John and Peter here as the Christians, they really knew what they were talking about, and they had this real compassion about the way they were trying to ask more questions.
So the
Not really
compassion of the
questions.
questions had you feel in a certain way.
It had me, yeah.
Yeah.
I was like trying to defend my standpoint, yet at the same time, I was kind of at a loss for words because I was expecting a label and a more of a discernment and aggressive statement.
More aggressive kind of
Almost like
statements.
I was labeling the Christian as, you gotta believe, this
Yeah.
is what it is. And really, all he wanted to know was where my heart, my mind was.
Yeah.
Not really where my worldview was.
Uh-huh.
You know, but it was personal. It
Got
was
you.
really personal.
Anyone else want to share?
Well, I didn't get through the first page yet.
You didn't get through the first page. You needed a few minutes. Okay.
It's because my group was talking about other things somehow, I don't know why.
Yeah, your group was talking about other things. Now it comes out.
Somehow we got put on the same page.
See in pastor's group, you're talking about
Were
fishing.
you in Pastor's group? They were talking about fishing? That was Dan. That wasn't me. That was him. All right, let's move on from that, redefining the atheism, to go back into the redefining of faith in the section is called fanciful faith. So the atheist's first move keeps him from having to defend his view. We talked about that. His second move is to keep you from defending yours. Okay, so be aware of straw men. Does anybody know what a straw man is when it comes to a logical statement? Go ahead.
A distraction.
A distraction, right? But it is not your view. It is a caricature of your view that you did not say, but they take that and then they defeat that instead of addressing your real concern or your real belief.
It's something easy to knock down,
Yeah, that's why they call it straw man, because it's easy to
which
knock
we do also to atheists, and that makes them very angry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes both
It
ways.
does go both ways.
Yeah.
So the atheist will attempt to paint your beliefs in a way that is not accurate, and then will pummel the straw man belief. Okay? So, page 79, if you have your books, you can turn to that. There's a section that's called Fanciful Faith. So let's take a look at that. Let's see. Second and third paragraphs. To illustrate this misstep, suppose I claim that atheism is false, since atheists don't believe in science. After all, they don't believe in God because they can't see him, but they can't see atoms either, so the existence of atoms must be in question too. Since most atoms are central to science, atheists then must not believe in science, and a worldview that denies science can't be true. You can immediately see the errors here. I have misrepresented the atheist view, easily defeating this distortion. This is not only bad manners, it's also bad thinking. An informal fallacy called straw man erects a caricature of someone's view, the straw man, then easily knocks the scarecrow down. So that's what we're talking about. Be aware of straw men in the conversation. This is a funny example, of course, to use, but atheists have continued this tactic in regard to the word faith. So this includes belief without evidence and pretending to know things you don't really know. Faith is the word one uses when there's not enough evidence. That's what they say, but that's not actually what we believe. Faith is critical to Christianity, so it becomes an obvious target for atheists. After all, if they can prove that faith does not exist, or that it's erroneous, or that you're an idiot for believing in that, that helps collapse Christianity onto itself, right? It does not matter how an opponent of Christianity defines faith. It does not matter how confused Christians define faith. What matters is how Christianity defines faith. What I'd like for you to do, could someone for me read out John chapter 20, verses 30 to 31?
Jesus did many other signs in the presence of the disciples, which are not written in his book, his name.
So these things are like evidence to me. The active trust is, and she cannot get past the sound to you. To try to battle that. That's that, John. To hammer home the point, was a man accredited by God to you by miracles, wonders, and signs, which God did among you through him, as you yourselves know. How do they know? They saw it. They heard it. They were witnesses there. Right? You want to take Acts 1:3?
Yep. After his suffering, he presented himself to them and gave many convincing proofs that he was alive. He appeared to them over a period of 40 days and spoke about the kingdom of God.
Acts 1:3. Many convincing proofs. John 10:38. But if I do them, even though you do not believe me, believe the works, that you may know and understand that the Father is in me and I in the Father. That's Jesus talking. Did he say, believe me blindly? No. Believe in the works that I do. Just see that. Want to take Acts
Yep.
17:2-3?
Yep. As was his custom, Paul went into the synagogue, and on 3 Sabbath days he reasoned with them from the Scriptures, explaining and proving that the Messiah had to suffer and rise from the dead. This Jesus I am proclaiming to you is the Messiah, he said.
Acts 17,
Explaining.
Paul reasoned from the Scriptures. He didn't just say, trust me. You just got to believe, brothers and sisters. He gave convincing proofs to them of how and why Jesus was the Messiah. John 1:1-3. That which was from the beginning, which we have heard, which we have seen with our eyes, which we have looked at and our hands have touched, this we proclaim concerning the word of life. The life appeared, we have seen it, and testified to it, and we proclaim to you the eternal life, which was with the Father and has appeared to us. We proclaim to you that we have seen and heard, so that you also may have fellowship with us. And our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son, Jesus Christ. Notice how John talks about Jesus. He says, we have heard. We have seen with our eyes. We have looked at it. Our hands have touched. We have seen it. It has appeared to us. We proclaim to you we have seen and heard. He says it over and over again. That's evidence. That's not blind faith. It's not about blind faith. The gospel isn't about that. It never was. Every time the apostles, every time a believer brought Christianity into the arena, what they did is they brought proofs and evidence as to why. That's not blind faith. Atheists can't have that point because it was never based on that. Does that make sense? Okay, good. There's Acts 2:22, Acts 1:3, John 10:38, Acts 17, 2 through 3, 1 John 1, 1 through 3. And then we had John 20, 30 to 31. And that's not all, of course, the scripture. That's just some of them bringing that. I'm not just peddling something here, right? Next section is entitled, Show Me the Money. There's a reason atheists insist on faith being blind. They're convinced there is no evidence for God. So they have a preconceived, they call that an a priori argument, right? So belief in God to them is irrational, and faith is an irrational God must be a leap in logic. So how can we get clarity on the irrational and no evidence charges of atheism? Use probing questions again. Precisely what is irrational about belief in God? That's a good question to ask. How does belief in God violate reason? That's another good question. What is the evidence for atheism that refutes the possibility of theism? Get specifics, guys. It's dumb is not specific. Follow up with what exactly is dumb about belief in God. Irrational beliefs are ones that fly in the face of solid evidence or contradict good reason. You won't find that with the Bible. You won't find that with God. It is the best possible choice of why things are. Do not settle on vague generalities. Push. Get specifics. You're not being rude. You're not being a burden. You're making that person think. Be aware that there is a difference between credible reason to believe and adequate proof to convince a hardened skeptic. We don't have 100% proof that God is real. We don't. We may say that because we want us to believe. We want to sound like we're, true believers. But we don't have 100% reason. We don't have 100% proof. We already talked about that. Nobody does. About really anything that they believe in. Right?
We don't have 100% that he doesn't either.
Well, that's true. But what I'm saying is we had adequate reasons to believe. We don't have the 100%. Right. Go ahead, Sandra.
When you say that, yes, we connect now with documented evidence 100% that there is a God that I have faith, with a strong trust and confidence in. However, my experience with what you have said with the scriptures, that's what brings it together.
Yes. Yes. So, exactly. A piece of evidence may lead to belief, but it's not the same as decisive proof, as 100% proof. And we all do that, right? We take what we see, we take what we experience, and we formulate from there. And that, yes, my experiences are valid. And they lead me to believe certain things, right? That is true.
Such as when we're reading scripture, and scripture jumps off the page, and we know that we know that we know when we're reading that.
Yeah.
That is our experience.
Yes.
I cannot deny that.
You can't.
And you cannot deny me of that.
I can't. Correct. I cannot deny your subjective experience. I can't do it. I can explain them away as, oh, you were hallucinating. You know, or, you know what, you were just really, you didn't sleep enough, and you were just a little bit out of it. Or you could say anything, right, to try to discredit that, but I can't tell, yes, you're wrong, I can't say that. I could say why I believe it doesn't hold water for me, for you. You see what I'm saying? And that's not the same thing as saying you're wrong, but they'll try to do that. Well, I'm not going to go by why would I go by, I don't know you. Maybe you are lying about it. How do I know if that's true or not? Well, it's my experience. Right, it's your experience, sure, but I don't know. Were you doing mushrooms? I don't know. What's that mean?
But that's where the conviction of the Holy Spirit comes in.
Yeah, well, that certainly, and I'm not saying don't use your personal experience because that's powerful, right? And what God has done for you is a powerful testimony.
Just
What,
like that man was saying.
yeah, what God has done in others, powerful testimony. The cloud of witness sort of thing. What God has done through history, through the different women and men of God, powerful testimony.
One of the problems with our personal testimony is we are exposing ourselves and we're making ourselves vulnerable.
Yes. Be aware that if you are sharing your personal testimony, you are making yourself vulnerable, but I would say that could pay off because people respond to vulnerability. And unless they're looking to eat you up, they won't respond generally. People respond to genuineness in general. You know, again, unless they're psychotic and wanting to really damage you or something, they will respond in a way that's. You'll catch someone off guard even when you show them that vulnerable, you know, the wall. You know, because they're not used to seeing that. They're used to seeing defensiveness.
I like what you said. Sandra, thank you. I like what Sandra said because in our testimonies, right, like people can see or feel, but the personal part about it is the worldview, and this I believe is what makes atheists' points to themselves stronger. Because like I said before, it's an emotional connection. And when you have a personal and emotional connection face to face, it knocks down that barrier of a wall that says, okay, the Church of Christ is this. No, it's not. When you get vulnerability and personable stuff, it knocks down that wall. And so atheism holds no more power in that moment as opposed to say, well, no, because I'm afraid to believe. Deep down inside, that's what they're saying and feeling. We don't know that until they share it with us. But when we go out and do what God is asking us to do as disciple people, we literally can transform. So I'm one of those people that lives in optimism, right? And I believe that if I say empowered thought is real, that if I say God has given me a hope, God has given me an assurance for me, that if I go and talk to this person, they're going to see my genuinity. And they're going to know, based on our personal relationship, that my personal relationship with God is real. Because what I have with you, like I was explaining with John when we were doing that skit, was I felt comfortable as an atheist even in that role play where now I have a different view. You know what I mean? Even in a role play. And it was weird. It was overtaken. You know, and the hope is that our church can meet people not where they're at all the time, because we're in a time now where God is coming. There's a return. And I feel sad for folks that are missing the mark. Because when we can be personable and not be, you gotta believe in the word, like I wish I could remember where it says that. It says we can't tell someone what to believe. So the whole point of faith and belief is someone has to find it themselves. And the only way they find that is by us being vulnerable and going out, being personable, and making it a relationship.
Absolutely.
You know?
So, I want you to know that saying there is no evidence to believe in God is not the same thing as saying I find the evidence unconvincing.
Right.
What I often find with people that say that there is no belief in God, they don't mean that. What they mean is I find the proofs to be unconvincing. That's a different thing altogether. But there is proof for God. It's just whether you find it to be convincing or not. Now, theists use abductive reasoning to prove God, taking everything into account. What is the simplest explanation for the way that things are? We do not have decisive proof of God, but the evidence leads us to a strong belief in God based on what we can see in the proofs that we do have. so the last thing I wanted to leave us with was, you see this, I've seen this, and you've probably seen the one less God
Yeah.
argument. Do you want to
Richard Dawkins.
Do you want to
Yeah.
explain what that's like?
Well, their ideas, like, there were the Greeks and all these other gods, and you don't believe in any of them either. You just believe in one God. So I just believe in one less than you. So if you say there were 1,000 fake gods and there's your God, so I just believe in 1,001. He's just kind of saying that it's just one less than you, and kind of
It's ridiculous.
yeah.
It's, Richard Dawkins has said this. Do you believe in Zeus? Do you believe in
Right.
Apollos? Do you believe
Yeah.
in Mithra? Do you believe in
Spaghetti
Hathor? Do you believe in Spaghetti God? No, why not? Because there's no evidence. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're basically an atheist. I just go one more than you.
Right.
That's what they say. But it's a completely ridiculous view, because
Right.
if you consider that statement,
Mm-hmm.
take a look at this. All married men are basically bachelors, since they're not married to every other woman on the planet.
Yeah. They're
make
just
sense?
one less woman than a bachelor.
Right? Their
Yeah.
bachelors are just one less woman than you.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense, right? People with jobs are basically unemployed, since there are millions of companies who have not hired them. No?
I'm basically homeless.
Yeah, right. Murderers are basically peaceful souls, considering all the people they haven't killed. See the ridiculousness of that statement?
Right.
No, you're still a murderer. That's precisely why we're considered theists, because we believe in God. Whether you believe in one or many, that's still a belief in God. Atheist is no God. There's completely no gods. So we're different. We're in different categories, because based on that belief. So that line of reasoning is absurd. If you're ever confronted with that, try not to laugh in their face. But
Well, you got good examples how to.
funny.
Yeah. And he actually used that. He was on stage debating, and that was something he brought up. And actually, if you've never heard it before, you almost like, well, that's true. We are kind of in the same place, because you're not thinking, rationally like that. You until you start looking and using that rationality with something, like, well, one less wife,
Right, nobody would ever say you're basically you're a bachelor. I just, no, because I'm not married to every other woman in the world. That's stupid. I'm still married to one. That's what makes me married. Yeah.
So, if I said those are incomparable values, like invaluable comparisons, what would you say? Because that's
Invaluable?
if somebody was coming at me with
Or
those,
incompatible?
no, they just don't hold the same value to compare them, so it makes it just nonsense. So if an atheist was to say those things and, okay, blah, 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 so that's why they don't hold equal value to the idea of God. You see what I'm saying? Like, what the
I think the concept is the same.
Is it though?
Yes. Because someone who kills one person is a murderer, regardless of the other people that they didn't kill.
Right.
Believing in one God is still a theist, regardless of the amount of gods they don't believe in. Being married to a woman is still married, whether you're married to the rest of the women on the planet. The number doesn't matter, right? Right.
Yeah, the atheist is the one that would bring that up, and they're just using it to kind of blur the line between theist and non-theist.
Yeah.
Because they can basically say, I'm just basically like you are, in the same boat.
So, just an idea. We reject the idea of finite gods because there's no reason to believe in a created God. Right? The God of the Bible is not like Zeus, Odin, or Ra, because there's evidence to support belief in a God of the Bible. But that's the subject of the next chapter, and we'll talk about that next week. So we are all set. We're a little bit late. You are dismissed.
Sure.